The cameras were rolling long before anyone realized the significance of what they were capturing. Inside a modest custom car shop in Alberta, conversations unfolded that would later reshape everything fans thought they understood about one of reality television's most intriguing partnerships. For years, viewers pieced together fragments of a story, speculating about what led to the breakup between Bad Chad and Jolene MacIntyre. Theories ranged from betrayal to financial disputes to hidden personal conflicts. Yet the truth, as it turns out, was far less sensational and far more human than anyone expected. Colton Hilt, Chad's son, had remained silent for years. Bound by loyalty, contractual obligations, and the emotional weight of watching his family navigate public scrutiny, he chose not to speak, until now. Sitting down to reflect, Colton carried the perspective of someone who witnessed everything from the inside. He saw the relationship grow from a genuine partnership into something strained under pressure, eventually unraveling in a way that was both quiet and deeply painful. What he reveals isn't a story of scandal, but of gradual change, misalignment, and the unintended consequences of living life on camera. In the early days, before television entered the picture, the relationship between Chad and Jolene appeared strong and balanced. Chad was the creative force, a self-taught builder with a remarkable ability to transform scrap into art. Jolene complemented him perfectly, bringing structure, organization, and business awareness to the operation. Together, they formed a dynamic that worked, creativity paired with practicality. To outsiders, especially viewers who later discovered them on television, they seemed like the ideal team. But even in those early stages, Colton noticed subtle pressures beginning to build. Turning a small, passion-driven shop into a televised production introduced challenges no one had fully anticipated. What had once been a personal and creative environment became a workplace shaped by deadlines, expectations, and the constant presence of cameras. The relationship, once private and organic, began to exist partly as a performance. The issues didn't begin with dramatic arguments or obvious conflict. Instead, they emerged through small disagreements, differences in priorities, approaches to projects, and decisions about money. These seemingly minor tensions accumulated over time. The nature of reality television only amplified them. Producers needed compelling narratives, editors needed drama, and personal moments often became public content. The boundaries between real life and entertainment blurred, making it increasingly difficult to maintain a healthy relationship. At the heart of their growing divide were fundamentally different visions for the future. Chad remained committed to the artistry of his work. He valued creativity, freedom, and the ability to build without constraints. Jolene, on the other hand, recognized the opportunity in front of them. She saw the potential to expand, to turn their exposure into a larger business, to create stability and growth. Neither perspective was wrong, but they were incompatible. As the show gained popularity, the pressure intensified. Financial strain became a factor, not because of a lack of success, but because of the demands that came with production. Projects needed to look impressive on camera, sometimes at the expense of profitability. Time constraints limited creative freedom. Jolene pushed for structure and scalability, while Chad resisted the idea of turning his passion into something corporate. What had once been a complementary dynamic became a source of friction. Colton recalls a specific moment that crystallized the situation. During a high-pressure build, an argument escalated beyond professional disagreement. What began as a discussion about timelines and expectations turned into something deeply personal. Accusations surfaced, frustrations boiled over, and unspoken resentments came to light. It was not just another argument, it was a turning point. In that moment, Colton saw a shift in his father, a realization that something fundamental had broken. Although parts of that conflict were captured on camera, the full context never made it to air. What viewers saw was tension, but not the depth behind it. This is one of the realities of reality television. The story presented is only a fraction of the truth. Hours of footage are condensed into narratives designed to engage audiences, often leaving out the nuance that defines real relationships. Behind the scenes, the strain continued to grow. Chad became more withdrawn, immersing himself in his work as a form of escape. Jolene grew increasingly frustrated, feeling the weight of maintaining the business while the partnership weakened. Attempts to find solutions, whether through compromise, separation of roles, or even taking a step back from filming, proved difficult. Everything in their lives was interconnected. Their relationship, their business, and the show itself. The eventual breaking point came not with a dramatic explosion, but with a quiet conversation about the future. The network wanted to continue. Jolene was ready to move forward and build on the opportunity. Chad, however, had reached his limit. The constant scrutiny, the pressure to perform, and the loss of personal space had taken their toll. In that moment, it became clear that they were no longer aligned, not just in business but in life. When the relationship ended, fans expected a public fallout. Instead, they were met with silence. Both Chad and Jolene chose to step away from the spotlight, handling the breakup privately. This decision, while frustrating to viewers hungry for answers, reflected a mutual respect. Despite the pain, they refused to turn their separation into spectacle. The absence of information led to widespread speculation. Without facts, narratives filled the void, most of them inaccurate. Colton explains that the truth was never dramatic. There was no betrayal, no scandal, no hidden secret. It was simply the story of two people who cared about each other but could not reconcile their differences. In the aftermath, Chad returned to what he knew best, building cars. The shop continued, albeit with a different structure and a more focused approach. Without the same level of external pressure, he rediscovered his passion. The work became an outlet, a way to process and move forward. Over time, he rebuilt not just his business, but his sense of balance. Jolene's path, while less visible, was equally significant. Walking away meant leaving behind years of effort, a shared dream, and a central role in something she helped create. Her journey forward was her own, and one that Colton respects by not detailing. What he emphasizes instead is that both individuals handled the situation with dignity, something often overlooked in a culture that thrives on conflict. Perhaps the most important insight Colton offers is about the nature of reality television itself. What audiences see is not a complete picture. It is a curated version of events, shaped to tell a story. While the emotions and relationships are real, the portrayal is selective. This creates a disconnect between perception and reality, leading viewers to form conclusions based on incomplete information. In reflecting on his father's relationship, Colton encourages a shift in perspective. Rather than searching for a villain or a dramatic twist, he suggests understanding the situation for what it truly was, a relationship that evolved, faced challenges, and ultimately reached a natural end. It is a story that mirrors countless real-life experiences, stripped of the exaggeration often associated with television. Today, there is no ongoing conflict between Chad and Jolene. Their relationship has settled into a distant but respectful acknowledgement of a shared past. They are no longer part of each other's daily lives, but neither are they defined by animosity. It is, in many ways, a clean break, one that allowed both to move forward. Ultimately, Colton's decision to speak is not about revealing secrets, but about correcting misconceptions. Time has provided distance, allowing him to share the story with clarity rather than emotion. He hopes that by doing so, people will better understand the realities behind the entertainment they consume and recognize the human experiences behind the screen. The story of Chad and Jolene is not one of scandal, but of complexity. It is about ambition, pressure, and the challenge of maintaining authenticity in an environment that demands performance. It is about two individuals who built something meaningful together, only to realize that their paths were no longer aligned. And perhaps most importantly, it is a reminder that sometimes the truth is not shocking, it is simply real.